The Asia Cup has not disappointed, with many amazing matches and upsets from Saudi Arabia's late comeback against Oman, Iraq's stunning tournament favorites Japan, Palestine against all odds getting their first ever win in this competition against Hong Kong to qualify for the knockout rounds. This tournament has been amazing to watch so far. Unlike CBS's Asian Cup morning show pundits, I have some pretty good knowledge when it comes to Asian football and this tournament, but I'm not getting paid a crazy salary to have an absolute dumpster fire coverage talking about this tournament. So in today's video, I'll be giving you all my knockout round predictions from the round of 16 all the way to the final. Hopefully my predictions in this video turn out as well as my MLS Cup playoff predictions. I already know I just jinxed myself by saying that. If we can hit over 150 likes on this video, I'll do a preview for the Asian Cup final as well. But let's jump into these predictions. For the first match, we have Tajikistan versus UAE. Both of these national teams kind of had a shaky run throughout the group stage. Tajikistan booking their ticket to the knockout rounds on their final match with a win over Lebanon, while UAE, by the scruff of their necks, qualified in second place in their group thanks to their late goal against Iran, which they did still lose the match, but that one goal saved them from not having to play a tougher opponent in Qatar in the round of 16. I'm going to go with UAE to win this match because I think they have a little bit more quality compared to Tajikistan, who, yes, they are a little bit more of the hot hand, as UAE had a pretty bad performance against Iran, and Tajikistan is coming into this match with a win against Lebanon. But I think with the quality that UAE have, I think that'll get them over the line in this game. Next up is Iraq versus Jordan. Iraq have been the surprise package so far in this tournament, and honestly, I think they could be one of the favorites to win this tournament. But Jordan, on the other hand, did have a pretty good display in their group stage matches, where if it wasn't for a late penalty for South Korea that Son converted, Jordan could have gone a historic win against South Korea in the group stage. But I still think with the quality Iraq has and how they've proven themselves so far in this tournament, I think this should be an easy win for them to advance in this match. Next up is Australia versus Indonesia. There isn't really much to talk about when it comes to this matchup. This should be a fairly win for Australia, but big shout out to Indonesia for making it to the knockout rounds, where they qualified by the finest of margins, the final spot of the best of third place positions. It's going to be cool to see them face off against Australia in the knockout rounds, but I don't expect them to win this match. Next up is the match to watch in the round of 16. It's Saudi Arabia versus South Korea. This is definitely the most exciting match of the round of 16 matches, where we're seeing two of the possible favorites face off early on. Saudi Arabia kind of just doing the bare minimum of their group, kind of squeaking by in every single match with 2 wins, 1 draw, nothing like super convincing by them in the group stages. And then there's South Korea, who had a really good first opening day match, but then kind of stumbled in both matches to get 2 draws, where at one point, if they did finish in first place, we would have possibly seen a South Korea versus Japan round of 16 matchup. But luckily, since they did choke against Malaysia, we're seeing them face off against Saudi Arabia instead. Saudi Arabia are one of the big nations in the Asian Cup that kind of always underperform, and that's like not even me just saying it, that's like statistics wise. And I know they've had this big resurgence with how much money they're pumping into their league, bringing in a huge, amazing manager in Roberto Mancini. I just don't think the plan is gonna quite come into fruition in this tournament, and I gotta back the team that I predicted to win the whole thing, so I'm gonna go with South Korea. Next up is Iran versus Syria. I did do in-depth reviews for every single one of Iran's group stage matches, so if you guys want my analysis on Iran throughout the group stage, make sure to go watch those videos. So I'm not gonna really talk much about their group stage matches in this video, but for Syria, they had a pretty okay run in the group stage. Their biggest highlight getting that 0-0 draw against Uzbekistan, but they have only scored 1 goal so far in this tournament, so that is a little bit concerning for them. But of course, I gotta back my boys Team Melli, and they're definitely gonna be advancing in this match. Oh yeah, and by the way, I will be doing a live stream watch along for this match and all of the latter stage matchups in this tournament, so make sure to click notify me on the live stream so you know when I go live, or just click subscribe and turn on those post notifications if that's a lot easier for you. Then next up is Bahrain versus Japan. Bahrain coming in hot with a first place finish in their group, finishing above South Korea, which sadly kind of shafted them because now they have to play against Japan. Bahrain's group stage performances were quite surprising and very impressive from them, while Japan, on the other hand, did stumble a little bit in their match against Syria. And I did say in my superlatives video that Japan might stumble a little bit in this tournament because there's just like so much expectations that they're the clear favorites in this tournament. I didn't think think it was gonna happen actually in the group stages. It came a lot sooner than I anticipated, and I do think that loss against Iraq was the right thing to happen for them. So they know that feeling of losing in this tournament. They know they don't want to feel that again in the knockout rounds where it's win or go home. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a thrashing from Japan to advance against Bahrain. The next up is Qatar versus Palestine. Palestine having the feel-good Cinderella story through this tournament, getting their first Asian Cup win, advancing to the knockout rounds, but I think this is kind of where the Cinderella story ends because they are facing against tournament host and possible favorites Qatar, who have looked okay throughout the tournament. Their group stage matches, their opponents were pretty easy, and I think they'll just squeak by to advance in this match. Then for the final round of 16 match, it's Uzbekistan versus Thailand. Uzbekistan started the tournament a little bit slow with that draw against Syria that I definitely did not suspect to happen, but as the other matches went on, we saw the Uzbekistan that I was hoping we would see in this tournament. Two great back-to-back performances against India and Australia, whereas well for Thailand, they've looked quite decent in this tournament. They finished second behind Saudi Arabia, but they have looked quite decent. But I gotta back the White Wolves, who I did predict would be my dark horses in this tournament. Now moving on to my predicted quarterfinal matchups, the first match would be Iraq versus UAE. This is where I think UAE's journey in this tournament ends. They've had a fairly straightforward path so far, but I think with how good Iraq has played in this tournament, I think they're definitely gonna win this match. And I will say, I think all UAE fans would be quite happy to make it to a Asian Cup quarterfinals before this tournament even started. So I'm gonna go with Iraq to advance the semifinal. The next up would be Australia versus South Korea. Now this is a match that I would absolutely love to see. Two of the heavyweights, two of the favorites in this tournament, the two nations that I actually predicted would possibly be the winners of this year's tournament, and they're facing off in the quarterfinals. Why couldn't it be South Korea on one end, Australia on the other end? But sadly, for my predictions, they're facing off in the quarterfinal. I do think Australia might have a little bit more of the edge in this match, the physicality, overrunning South Korea in the midfield battle. Gotta go with those X factors that South Korea have. Kang Hee-lin, Kim Min-jae, Hwang Hee-chan. I think those guys will come in clutch in these matches. And we mustn't forget the main man himself, Son Heung-min. For the next matchup, we have Iran versus Japan. God damn it! Why did Iran have to face off against Japan in the quarterfinals? As much as I want to say that Iran could beat Japan and maybe advance to the semifinals, I just don't think it's gonna happen. Japan has way more quality than Iran does. I think they'll set up tactically a lot better in this game as they're facing off against a pretty good opponent. As I've said in previous videos, I think Moriyasu always kind of fumbles the bags in games where he thinks he should probably easily win against teams that are kind of below Japan, like Costa Rica at the World Cup and like Iraq in the group stage. Iran, yes, are one of the very few teams that won all three of their group stage matches, have looked pretty good so far in this tournament. I just don't know how they would beat Japan. Obviously, the last time these two teams faced off was in the previous tournament back in 2019 in the semifinals, where Iran was going toe-to-toe against Japan, but after one lapse in judgment by the Iranian defense, it kind of just all went haywire from there. I do think it'll definitely be a better performance than that previous meeting by Iran, but I think Japan just has the quality. I think one thing Iran could do to possibly expose Japan, and it's definitely their weakness in this tournament, is the goalkeeping position. We already saw from Zion Suzuki, if that's how you pronounce his name correctly, has been a little bit of a liability. So if like the likes of Mehdi or Sardar pounce on opportunities, which they most definitely can, we could see the possible upset from Iran. And I do think if Iran win this game, I definitely see them going all the way to the final because their path becomes really easy. This is by far their most difficult opponent leading up to the final. If things kind of go as I predict them to, Iran could have a realistic shot at making the final. But for this video, I'm gonna go with Japan to win this match. Then for the final quarterfinal match, we have Qatar versus Uzbekistan. Unless we see some shit like we did in the last Asian Cup where the refereeing was very questionable and very much in favor of Qatar, I think Uzbekistan will handily win this match. They will be Qatar's most challenging opponent so far in this tournament. I think Qatar is gonna crumble rumble. So I'm going with the White Wolves. They're going to the semifinals. Now for my predicted semifinals matchup. For the first match, I have Iraq versus South Korea. This is a very tasty matchup if this actually happens in the semifinals, because Iraq are definitely going to be heavily underrated going into this match. Everyone's going to say South Korea are very much the favorites, and I'm going to have to kind of agree with them. I gotta back South Korea. I predicted them to win the whole tournament, so I'm going to say they're going to the final. And then for the other semifinal matchup, we have Japan versus Uzbekistan. I definitely don't think this will be a cakewalk at all for Japan if they do face off against Uzbekistan in the semifinals. I think Uzbekistan has the fight, has the offense to go toe-to-toe against this national team, but Japan just has the quality, the experience of winning Asian Cup semifinals, being in Asian Cup finals, so I'm gonna have to say they will advance to the final. So that would mean my Asian Cup final predictions will be Japan versus South Korea. This would definitely be everyone's ideal favored final matchup in this tournament, to have the two heavyweights of Asian football face off to see who would win this year's Asia Cup. But boys and girls, my opinion only matters so much. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What predictions of mine do you guys agree with, disagree with? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure to be there for all of my live streams, watch alongs throughout this tournament, so make sure you're subscribed, have notifications on so you know when I'm live, when I upload content for this tournament. But boys and girls, I hope you all have a lovely day.